Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Alexandra Wenman show. I'm so excited, actually, to introduce you to my guest today. His name is Phi the Poet, and for those of you who know me, you know that I eat, sleep, and breathe poetry. So I was kind of scrolling through Instagram while I was on holiday in Spain recently, looking for, beautiful poems and things, and I stumbled across this amazing poet and hip hop artist. And Phi is actually like, so Phi, you're like the original authentic hip hop artist, right? You're trying to, I suppose, bring hip hop back to what it's meant to be. I want to know, just kick us straight off with what you're about, what your poetry is about, what your music is about, and what your vision is, I suppose.
Okay, wow, that's a lot of questions in one. So if I digress, and I tend to digress, just bring me back a little bit. Um, First of all, thank you for the compliment about me being a big original hip hop artist. I don't really see myself as that. I guess I've always had problems with like everyone with doubt and some insecurities every now and then. So I don't always see myself as an authentic, real hip hop artist, but I do try and keep it as authentic as possible. And yeah, I am kind of trying to engender real hip hop again. I think a lot of what is going on now in the mainstream and even in the music industry in general is there's a lot of nonsense going on there. I mean, there's not a lot of authenticity with talent and singing and content. It's really just put on a persona, get someone else to write your content for you, play a role, and it's all good. That really seems to be the only requirement now, is that you just play the role that you're given. You know, they give you this role to play, whether it's super eccentric, out there, Nicki Minaj, Lady Gaga type stuff, play this role, and that's the only requirement you need.
That's it, right? Most of them are quite curated. They've got wardrobe people, stylists,
Yeah.
PR. It's such a machine, isn't it now? It's
Yeah.
less of the authentic sort of, even in the music industry on a whole, in general, there's less of the authentic sort of David Bowie-esque, people that came out and were just themselves, as kooky and crazy and weird and out there as they wanted.
Prince, Michael Jackson.
Yeah.
I mean, I was listening to. I was training at the gym yesterday, and I felt like putting some '80s music on, and Whitney Houston came on, and I was thinking to myself, and I often think this when I listen to real singers from the past. No one sings like. I mean, it's hard to sing like Whitney Houston to begin with. She had an amazing voice. But yeah, it's hard to find that now, that really strong, powerful, just raw voice. Whitney didn't have to put on this big show and, be super eccentric and be super flashy. Of course, I'm sure she was in some of her videos, but I don't know. It's just, do you know what I'm saying? You just don't find that nowadays.
Yeah, it was like there was less of the big kind of machine around her. I think she started off wasn't she a gospel singer or something originally, and then
I don't know. It wouldn't surprise me though, because she had a powerful voice on her.
And I know that her mum was a singer too, so she grew up around it. So she definitely had the pipes, didn't she?
Yeah, for sure. That's for sure.
Speaking of upbringing and growing up, how long have you been doing music for? How did you start?
It's actually an interesting journey into it. Obviously, hip hop played a pretty big role in my life, and even at a young age, I did get kind of pulled into the trap of mainstream hip hop as I was a teenager growing up. But I also was drawn to some of the more underground groups that kept it, even some of the more mainstream groups that kept it real, like Jurassic 5, De La Soul, Yeah, obviously I listened to Tupac a lot. He was one of the mainstream folks that, one of the few mainstream individuals that I thought kept it pretty real. You know, a lot of people will talk about, you know, his lyrics and him rapping about partying and women and, you know, the gangster life, that kind of thing. But I also think after he was, you know, off the mic and not performing, he really spoke about a lot of things. He spoke about, you know, we need education to change. You know, he spoke out against the government. You know, he was an intelligent dude. And so to go back to how I started getting into it, I was actually going on my yoga teacher training, and we were just kind of just to have some fun. I was in Guatemala, and just to have some fun with it, we decided to do a little, I guess, show and tell talent. Like, let's just have some fun. All bring a talent to the table and have a little stage, and we just have some fun with it. And so I decided to write, I guess, just a spoken word. And I had dabbled in poetry when I was a bit younger, and I found it quite a interesting way of expressing yourself, an interesting way of getting your thoughts out. And so after I did this kind of talent show on my yoga teacher training, something just clicked, and I got a lot of really positive feedback from my colleagues that I was on the teacher training with. And yeah, after that, something clicked, and I stuck with it. I kept doing it. I kept writing. And at first it was really just kind of therapy for myself, because I was going through some pretty hard times back when I had just started my movement coach journey. And I was also in the military for 4 years. So after that, I was still going through some pretty hard times. And so really it just began as a way just to like release. I had all this stuff in my head, and I had always been really eclectic in my learning. I always like to learn about many different things, as many different things as I can. So it just, and then the more I wrote, the more, you know, I went, you know, if this can be therapy for me and, you know, help me, why can't it do the same for other people? And then so on top of it being a release for me, it became a way for me to help uplift and inspire. And then the more I kind of grew and the more I saw the potential for it, the more I realized that, you know, maybe, I don't want to sound cliche, but maybe this is my path in life, that, you know, if I can inspire people and uplift people and, you know, help to educate people. Just as an example, Alexandra, I was teaching a complimentary class for Lululemon while I was in Australia. And sometimes after my classes while I was there, I would do one of my songs. And after the class, I had a lady come up to me whose husband had just passed away who had passed away about a week ago. And she told me that the lyrics in my song were the only thing that had made her smile since then. And so that was super powerful for me. And it really affirmed for me that, okay, cool, this is what I need to do. And even if there's, never any money involved in it, you know, that feeling was just, it was such an awesome feeling to experience that and to have someone say that to me. To me, you know, those instances are so much more important than any sort of financial gain I could get from anything. It just,
Absolutely. When you're following your passion, your true passion and your calling, it sort of lights you up from the inside out, doesn't it? And it doesn't matter whether there's money involved or not. It's always something that it's therapeutic for you. So if it helps other people, all the better. It's really beautiful to hear that, because it then becomes a sort of a vehicle for you without you even realizing, I think, half of the time. It's so funny,
Yeah,
that question I asked you, I so wasn't expecting you to start with, well, I started getting into hip hop when I was on my yoga training. It's like, you're like hip hop yogi. It's brilliant.
yeah. I've had a pretty interesting path in life. Yeah.
Yeah, so would you call yourself spiritual, Phi? Is that the word that you use, or more conscious or awake? How would you call your sort of path?
Oh man, so much to talk about. Yeah, again, it's with that. I, I guess I would consider myself spiritual, but I also think that word is just thrown around so loosely now. And, anybody who goes to a yoga studio or a yoga class considers themselves spiritual. And I think and I'm not trying to be an elitist. I'm not trying to be, yeah, one of those people, but I think we throw around words so loosely now that they lose meaning. And I think yoga is a perfect example of that. I mean, modern yoga has absolutely nothing to do with ancient yoga, but a lot of people, and I think spirituality nowadays, because it's thrown around so loosely, that people don't really know what it truly means to be spiritual. And again, I'm not trying to be an elitist, and I'm not saying that I even know what it means to be spiritual, but yeah, it's consciousness is good. I like consciousness. More consciousness is always needed in the world, that's for sure. I see a lot of unconsciousness and a lot of unconscious people going about their days, so consciousness is always a good word. But yeah.
I like it. I'm in total agreement. I have another YouTube show called Awake Ones that I do with a couple of other women, and we did another show the other day, and we called it Humanness, because the word authenticity has been thrown around so much that it's become almost inauthentic, and it's like we do this thing as humans with the labels, and then the philosophy behind the word is being lost somewhere, like the true meaning, like the word ascension has become so bandied around now, and it's almost
I
become,
haven't heard that one much. Interesting.
yeah, but it's like sort of it sort of loses its it's true oomph, I think, for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And obviously, like, God, I've met so many coked up yogis in the last
Oh yeah.
years. It's like, if you're, to me, it's like, well, the path of the yogi isn't about doing it just to get skinny and go out clubbing. There's so much more to it. So in your journey, when did you start on the kind of yogic path? When did you start learning about the body movement stuff and going deeper into that work?
Before I answer that, I want to go back to you mentioning yogis doing coke. I actually read an article while I was in Australia that spoke about that very culture, because it was very prevalent. I was in Bondi Beach for a while, and I think you know what that area is like. So and I think the article was entitled "Yogi by Day, Party and Cocaine Fiend by Night," and the article talked exactly about that. How there's these swaths of people going to yoga classes, potentially calling themselves spiritual or whatever, and then at nights, going and hitting the lines of cocaine and hitting the alcohol pretty heavy. So I found that a pretty interesting article to read. And leading into your question, I've always been involved with movement. I played high level sports when I was younger: basketball, track and field, volleyball, really anything. I've always just been a pretty physical person and love doing physical things with my body. And then I kind of started moving more to, I trained martial arts for about 10 years as well. So that really connected me to my body on a deeper level than just fitness. I was reading a lot of Bruce Lee books then, and so that really inspired me. That was actually the first book that I read, was Bruce Lee's commentaries on the martial way. That was the very first book that really made me take a step back, look at my life, and go, this is an example that, you know, I want to live by. And from there, I think it started about 15, 16. From there, kind of my movement journey, whether it was in sports, you know, I guess calisthenics, gymnastics, movement in general, it kind of started from there. And yeah, it just keeps evolving and growing, and yeah.
It's amazing. It fits so well. It fits so well with the spiritual journey as the body journey, isn't it? I was even last night. As I was falling asleep last night, I was having this deep conversation with my body. It was like with my body elemental, and it felt really good. It felt like, I mean, I used to be really into fitness as well, and then it sort of dropped away in recent years because I went through quite a difficult time, and then my body's been through a lot of changes. But I sort of realized that the way I used to view fitness and movement was more of a punishment. I was kind of coming at more of a punishment, more of a trying to fit into somebody's idea of what my body should look like. And then that sort of dropped away. Now I'm starting to open up again, and I'm working with a really beautiful girl over here. Her name's Carolina, and she's a bit like you. She's into the body, but more into like the emotions behind why we eat what we eat and why we do what we do. So she's very holistic. She's beautiful. And she's been getting me to photograph my food every day and send her a picture of what I'm eating, and tell her sort of like, why did you choose that? And it really makes you eat more consciously and think about your choice. And I realized I've been in complete denial about the amount of sugar I've been eating recently. Ooh. But again, I'm not coming at it from a punishment point of view. I'm just aware of it, and then I can start to make subtle changes. But this conversation with my body last night was really beautiful. It was like I hadn't done it for a while. Just have a chat with the diva of the body. And I really felt myself relax into such a deep sleep last night. It was gorgeous. I think we forget that to be spiritual isn't to be like running around in caftans and braids in your hair and stuff like that. It's not just about a look, even though I do kind of sport that look quite well. But it is about embodying it. You know, we can't not be spiritual. As humans, we are spirit in matter, where the body is the vessel for spirit. So we can't escape that. So there's nothing woo-woo about spiritual. It is what we are. So, but I think, you know.
If I can add something to that as well, you said, you know, the body is our vessel for the spirit. And, you know, talking about spirituality, you know, if we look at the laws of the universe and we look at the laws of nature, I think we're the only species that really kind of goes against those laws. And if we look at the law of kind of movement or growth, like everything is in movement, everything is in vibration, right? Constantly vibrating. And I think we as humans, we, you know, kind of don't do that. And I think it's, you know, one of the reasons we're here is to grow. I think, you know, it's our duty to grow, because if we don't, we can't, you know, help the collective. It's now become about what I want, my ambitions, my wants, rather than the collective. And the fact of the matter is, whether you like it or not, we are a collective.
That's true, yeah.
When, you know, something happens on the other side of the globe, you know, it affects everything. It affects the energy. It affects, you know, just because it didn't happen to you directly doesn't mean that in some way, shape, or form it's not going to affect you. And so I think that I think it's our duty to grow, and I think we unfortunately neglect that duty.
I agree. I was saying that to someone the other day, that exact phrase. You know, what happens, you know, if there's a starving child in Africa, we can't turn a blind eye on it. It affects us on such a deep level. I've been experiencing, like, most of my life, but really intensely in recent years, feeling others' emotions on such a deep level that if somebody's hurting, even if I see it on TV, I feel it in my body. I actually feel it as though it's my emotion or my pain. And I think that we're one step away now from telepathically communicating like the Aborigines and the tribes used to do. You know, I think this is part of what we call ascension and awakening and the expansion of our consciousness and our growth. And understanding, like, what I love is your name. I love that you call yourself Phi, and I love that I teach about that sacred geometry and the golden
universal number, the golden number.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I saw that. I think that was one of the first things that sort of drew me to you when I saw your work. I was like, hang on, he's an interesting character. He obviously gets the laws of the universe and nature. So what was it that drew you to that name as your name? Had you been studying the mathematics and the geometry, or?
Wow. I'll try to make that long story short. Yeah, I was just trying to find something that would embody everything that I wanted to do. And I guess this is where I'm a little bit not like the original hip hop MCs, as their MC names were given to them by people that were either a part of their crew or their friends or the people they hung out with. But I'm a pretty solitary guy. I don't have a lot of close friends. So yeah, I just decided to come up with my own MC name. Self-titled, I guess. I am. And yeah, it took me a long time. I had tried other names before, and I had started Instagram page, and I had launched my website, and I was just like, no, doesn't work. Take it down. And that happened about 3-4 times. So it wasn't easy to really find something that not only resonated with me on a deep level, because it had to have meaning. I didn't want it to just be a name. I really wanted it to be powerful. I wanted it to be impactful. I wanted it to represent what I was about, what my music was about, what I was trying to do, and somehow try to encompass everything that, yeah, I was offering. And so it wasn't easy. So eventually just through a lot of, I guess, trial and error, I came to it, but also through obviously reading. And I think what actually kind of was the final light bulb went off was I was watching a documentary about the pyramids. I think it's, I can't remember what it was called. Anyway, really excellent documentary.
The Pyramid Code, was it that one?
The Pyramid Code, that was an excellent one. Revelation of the Pyramids, I think.
Oh, I need to watch that one. I haven't seen it.
Excellent. You can find it on YouTube. And they were talking about how the golden ratio can be found in the pyramids. And I was like, and then so I started kind of looking into it a little bit more. I was like, okay, this is a universal number. It's found in the universe, in nature. It's found in one of the most mysterious structures that we have on this planet. So I tried it out, and it fit, it stuck. So, and then I finally stuck with it, because I'm the type of person that if something doesn't work, I'm like, okay, no, we start all over again. Even if one little thing doesn't really fit in my head, I'm like, clean slate and start all over again.
Yeah.
Little bit. I guess that's the Virgo in me, and they say Virgos are perfectionists. So
you're Virgo, are you? So I guess your birthday is around now while we're filming.
It passed. It was, yeah, on the 5th of September.
Happy birthday. I'm a September baby too, but I'm just in Libra. Couple of days into Libra.
So when's yours?
26th.
Okay.
September babies rock though. And
yeah.
I have a weird, I think I do have a bit of Virgo in me, because I'm quite set in my ways, but then it's like Libra, organized chaos. But I'm actually, Virgo's the worst nightmare. But yeah, it's brilliant. But you've traveled a lot as well. You're quite worldly. So you grew up in Canada, am I right?
Yep, that's right. I was born in Canada. I was born in Toronto. And then I grew up in Saskatchewan. My parents got divorced, so I ended up moving back to Toronto for about 3-4 years of my life. I lived in Halifax. I lived in a couple smaller cities when I was in the military. Yep. So Canada is my home. I want to see more of it though. I'm a little bit disappointed that before I went traveling abroad, I didn't see more of my own country.
Yeah, but the way I see it, I did the same with Australia. And I always think, well, I've got the rest of my life to see Australia. I've got to see the rest of the world first. And then maybe
True.
I'll, in retirement, get a camper van and travel around Australia in a camper
Mm-hmm.
van.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But you spent some time in Oz, didn't you?
I did, yeah.
That's exciting. I love it. What did you think of it?
Um, I thought I thought the people were I thought the people were going to be a little bit more relaxed, a little bit more chill, but I found that they were kind of the same kind of slumber that a lot of people are, just like the drinking and the partying when I was going there, I was already really diving pretty deep and pretty heavy into, I guess, trying to expand my consciousness or, yeah, just make some really big changes in my life. So I had already kind of taken a step out of I always call it the television program
Yeah.
that the world or society is running. And once you step out of the television program, you watch everybody else. Yeah, really, it's hard to step back into it, and it's hard not to. And I try not to judge, and I try not to be so critical of it because that doesn't do any good. But I find it very difficult. But obviously the weather was nice. I really enjoyed the ocean, going swimming in the ocean and in the rock pools that they had there. But yeah, I don't know. I guess we all have different opinions, and we perceive how things are going to be before we go to another country, and then it doesn't meet our expectations. That's not to say it didn't. I really enjoyed it there, but I also had some hard times there with work, and the fitness and yoga industry there is super competitive.
Yeah.
And this,
Yeah.
go ahead. No, go ahead.
Yeah. Well, I guess I left going on 20 years ago. And I actually think Australia was more laid back when I left. When I go back to visit now, I've noticed that it's become really Americanized.
Yeah.
And there's this kind of a nanny state that has crept in. And it's
Yeah.
something, it's not just outsiders that notice it. That all my friends that live there are really frustrated because it's become so bad. Like, the no smoking signs are now an A4 page size big. You can't do anything without being told, don't do that, keep off the grass, make sure you put your seatbelt on, no jaywalking. I've never seen so many rules in all my life. It's shocking. And I know, living in Britain and Europe, everything's so relaxed. People cross the road left, right, and center, and nobody really listens to what they're told to do. And I love the freedom of living here.
Yeah.
But that surprised me because I go home sort of every 2 years. And by the way, for the Aussies watching, we're not slagging you off. I love Australia.
No.
I do love Australia.
I hate the Australia.
I love Australia so much that when I got my British passport and my citizenship here, I refused to swear before God because I, in my heart, am Australian. But it does make me sad that this culture, it's happening worldwide. It's just that in pockets, I think it's getting more intense, where it's a bit of a kickback against this awakening consciousness, I think. They're trying to tighten the belts and tighten the reins and keep control of the masses a little bit more. And I think it's a bit frightening, a lot of it.
Yeah, I think I'm going to play devil's advocate on this a bit, but I agree with you. But I also think if you look at the state of the world and how our society is, I think a lot of people it's out of control. And so I wanted to mention and touch on the rules in Australia. It's like, well, if, let's say some of these rules aren't in place, nobody takes responsibility for their actions anymore.
Yeah.
And it seems courtesy, common sense are all kind of gone out the window. And it goes back to this like sleeping unconscious population. And I'm in Europe now, I'm in Belgium. And oh man, I was telling my partner the other day that it's very difficult to like not get caught up in all that. The hustle bustle, people, I don't know, I guess maybe it's a little bit of the Canadian in me, but I'm always, and part of the awakening and consciousness, but I try to be as aware of other people as possible. Even if it's just little things like holding the door for someone, just being mindful, thoughtful that, I'm not the only one in society that if I'm driving in a car, I'm not the only one that needs to get where I'm going. If I'm cycling, I'm not the only one that needs to get where I'm going. And so I think I definitely think the government is, in any population and any society, I think they're realizing that people are kind of not buying into their bullshit anymore. So it's, people are definitely awakening, but I also see a lot of people still kind of sleeping. There's so many distractions. I mean, I always see, have you ever seen Wall-E?
Yes.
The film?
Yeah.
When I watched that when I was in my teens, I thought then this is not so far off. People sitting in their chairs on their screen. I mean, we've already got Google. We've already seen the Google images of our phone where it's just that eyepiece in front of us and constantly in front of us. And our phone, something that's separate from us, is constantly in front of us now. Yeah. And so it's hard. It's hard to kind of, I'm not too sure where I'm going with this, but just a little bit of a tangent, I guess.
It's good. I love a tangent. I think it's what I like to call holographic thinking, when you go off on a tangent. But I think your comment that you made was really key. It's, if we could just honor whatever anyone else is doing, it's not so much about minding our own business, but being mindful and still being kind to people. I always say that everyone's doing the best that they have with the tools that they've got. And, no one sets out to be a jerk. Most people are, we're all human and we all have those trigger points. But with regard to the rules, I think the rules, there's so many rules that it's getting hard for people to follow their inner calling and follow the calling of their heart, because somewhere, if you're following the calling of your heart, there's going to be a rule somewhere that tells you not to. And I always think, well, as long as the following of your heart is doing harm to none, that surely should be fine. I think the issue is where people, governments, the status quo, society tries to get us all to fit into the same container in the same box.
Absolutely.
And all of that. We're all different. We're all unique. And so this is what's wonderful about your music, because this is you really stepping into your uniqueness and bringing your gifts to the world. Did you, before you started bringing it out publicly, did you have fears about bringing out this type of message, especially because of the way that hip hop is these days?
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, I'm not the only one doing it. I always tell myself that I want to be part of, the small group of people that, there's a line in one of my songs where, I picked the mic up off the floor, meaning that, I'm sick of, seeing people just dismiss it and forget about the culture and treat it like shit. And so, I'm going to pick that mic up off the floor and do something with it. And so, there were a lot, even, with anything, with any of my ideas and thoughts. And sometimes I do little 60-second, videos on a thought that I had on mindfulness, whatever. And sometimes I'm scared to even bring those out, because it's, there are systems in place to keep people going back to materialism and money and partying. And these systems are put in place from a very young age. There's very much, and people, automatically label you a conspiracy theorist once you start talking about this stuff. There's a lot of social conditioning and programming going on. That's part of what propaganda is. If you read anything any sort of literature about propaganda, it starts to really open your eyes about the social conditioning. I mean, social media does it. I deleted my Facebook page. After all the Cambridge Analytica stuff came out, and I knew they were doing this stuff years and years ago. I knew that Facebook was, doing some pretty nefarious stuff, but it wasn't until the Cambridge Analytica stuff came out that I said, okay, take it out. So yeah, with my music, I always think when I'm writing something, I always go, should I write it down? Or for a while anyway, I was doing it. Should I really say this? And then eventually I just had to say, fuck it. I don't want to censor myself. I don't want to filter myself at all. But, I did a post yesterday on my Instagram talking about how truth has become subjective now. And, I think it's true. Really, people just refuse to see truth now. And it doesn't matter if you present to them that truth on a silver platter with all the facts in the world. If it goes against their beliefs, their religion, their philosophies, no, they just ignore it. Yeah. Their brain goes into defense mode.
Yeah, because it's safe, right? It feels safe to them to stay in what they know. It's like the Matrix. It's red pill, blue pill.
Yeah, it is.
Your whole, because be prepared to let go of stuff. Like most of the likes of us, right? We've had our lives crumble beneath us, and like any titles that we might have had that we were associating with, it's a real wake up call. And you lose friends most of the time. People think you're a complete weirdo. I channel publicly. that is nerve wracking. And but you know what? My whole aim is to normalize the conversation about this stuff. So if spirituality and authenticity and that is now becoming normal, I suppose then we're winning half the battle. But it's nerve wracking. But when you write, did your writing, like, you're pretty much channeling the words, aren't you? You are pretty much just tapping into your inner genius when you bring it through.
Oh man. Yeah, I try to anyway. I try to keep it down to earth. I try to keep it humble, but there's also like a little bit of part of that, like MC hip hop, where you got to have a little bit of cockiness to you, and you got to have a little bit of fire to you. So sometimes I write, as if I'm this awesome creative MC. And, I listen to a lot of hip hop. I listen to a lot of MCs from around the world. I haven't heard too many people that write like I do. And I think it has to do with the books that I read, the growth that has come into my life, all these things. But again, I try. It's funny, in another one of my songs, I have a line where I talk about, started writing as a means to help with my awakening, and then I go into talk about, are these past lines, are these lines manifested from past lives?
I heard that one this morning and I loved it. I love anything past life or multidimensional is so thing to me. I was like, oh my god, he put past lives in his. That's brilliant.
Yeah, and I started thinking about that early on because it really just came out of nowhere. And I started thinking, are some of these MCs that have passed on, are they, manifesting their lyrics through me? Is it possible? There's a whole wide range of thinking there.
It wouldn't surprise me, Phi, if you had the likes of Tupac in your guide team.
I would like to think that would be true, but who knows?
Who knows? It's definitely interesting. So in terms of like your overall mission statement or your overall, I suppose, message that you want to bring through, how could you sum that up in like a sentence, if that's possible?
one of my mottos that I kind of use is move your mind, move your body, and move your soul. I guess that is all encompassing as it can be. So I would say, yeah, that move your body to be healthy, because we're meant to move, move your mind to learn and grow, educate yourself, not to stagnate, and move your soul and cultivate it. I like to read a lot about ancient literature and Socrates and Plato and Pythagoras and Lao Tzu and Confucius and all these guys. And one of the things that I find interesting is that I've read some lines where they talk about, like, the soul is not just inherently given to you. It has to be manifested. It has to be grown, like the muscles on our body. And if it's not cultivated, I guess if we go and look at the Hindu Indian religion of, the Dharma wheel and reincarnation, the whole purpose of enlightenment or nirvana or whatever you want to call it is to stop that cycle of reincarnation. It's not to continue.
Really. Yeah.
Pardon?
To bust out of it.
Yeah, right. So I think, if you don't cultivate your spirit or your soul, in the next life, you're gonna kind of go through the same trials and tribulations if you don't learn, if you don't grow. If you start growing now, even if you start growing at 50, maybe you can carry that into the next life and into your next iteration of life, I guess. But,
amazing. I love it. I love that message. So,
yeah.
for those who aren't familiar with your work, how can people find you online? So we know that you're on Instagram, which is Life of Phi, am I right?
Yeah, the Path of Phi, yeah.
Path of Phi. And do you have a website?
Not at the moment, I do not. I'm trying to work on it. Like I told you before, I've been through about 3 or 4 different websites, and I took them all down. So now I'm just kind of right now, Instagram's working. I've met awesome people like yourself, and I'm more and more daily, more and more things are coming up with my Instagram. So right now my Instagram is working out fine, but I would like to eventually launch a website, but I'm not too sure how to do it right now.
Yeah, it's great. It's kind of easy because you're consolidated, right? You're all in the one spot.
Yeah.
For those viewers watching, you're on SoundCloud as well, aren't you? But the link to
Yes.
SoundCloud is through your Instagram. So
yeah, that's correct.
Yeah, I'll share all the links below so people can find you and everything.
Awesome, thank you. There'll be lots more music coming as well. I've got so many songs and so many lyrics that I want to share. There'll be lots coming. I'm actually trying to release an EP. I wanted to get it done before September, but I also started my language courses, and I had to take 2 or 3 of the instrumentals that I was going to use. I had a second, third, fourth listen to them, and I didn't like them. So now I have to search for new instrumentals, which is not easy to find a producer that kind of vibes with what I'm trying to put out, because there's a lot of I can't think of the word. A lot of like dubstep kind of hip hop beats that are out now, really broken up beats, and so I'm trying to keep a old school vibe with this EP. So it's a little bit delayed, but I'm trying to get it out as fast as I can, and it will happen, definitely.
And is there any way I can tempt you to treat us to a little bit of your expertise in the hip hop department? Can I put you on the spot?
Oh, geez. No, I'm not on the spot, guys. Sorry, Alexandra.
That's okay. That's all right. Well, for those people watching, you can see Phi at his best on his Instagram, which is the Path of Phi, and I will share the SoundCloud. I really recommend going on the SoundCloud and hearing the full tracks, because I was bopping away to you this morning, and I swear to God, I felt so uplifted, and it really you can really feel the difference. For those of us that are sensitives, you know, you can feel in music when the music is bringing you low or when it's uplifting and elevating you. And I really, really felt uplifted and positive when
Really?
I finished listening. It was great. It was really
That's
like,
awesome.
yeah, really,
That's
really great.
awesome.
So
Which one did you listen to? Did you listen to all of them, or
it was, oh, what's the first one? Let me have a,
probably the most recent one I did, Soul Swerve, I think?
yeah, Soul Swerve. I listened to that, and then I listened to the other one with the picture of the cassette. What's that one?
Yeah, classic like cassettes.
Yeah, I like
Yeah,
that one. Was great, but Soul Swerve was like, yeah, I was like in my little room bopping away, going,
that's awesome. That's really cool to hear.
yeah, it's awesome because you know, it's not so much the type of music I would normally listen to, but mainly because it has become so commercialized and
Yeah,
so, you know, I find,
just completely dumbed down. I
yeah,
mean, they're not even rhyming anymore. They just say the same word 8 or 10 times.
yeah,
It's a shame.
it is a
And
shame.
it's a shame that people buy into that toxic culture and, they venerate.
Very
Uh,
misogynist, a lot of it as well, which I really don't, you know, I don't want to sound like a, you know, a feminazi, but you know,
no, no,
I
I totally agree.
actually think some of it is really degrading to
Yeah,
women. I just don't agree with it at all.
yeah.
Um,
And what gets me is that parents have their kids listening to this stuff. And when I was young, I was like, music doesn't have an influence on me. TV doesn't, but it does. As you get older, you
programming,
realize it does.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah. You realize how much of it. You see that the music industry has a direct impact on how teenagers act, on how they behave, on what they think is cool. Yeah, it's crazy. And then you've got young kids listening to Britney Spears or something. She's not part of the hip hop
no,
community.
but even
Um,
that teeny pop stuff. I mean, I work as a healer and an energy healer, and I'm very psychic, very clairvoyant and clairaudient, and I have this ability to I almost can see what's coming through the TV and the radio. I see it as like energy. It's hard to describe how, you know, you kind of know what's coming through. A lot of those pop songs that seem harmless, you know, they get stuck in your head, and if you actually pay attention to what they're saying on,
yeah,
it's really like it makes you go into self-doubt. It's
yeah,
programmed to keep you kind of asleep and on this kind of rat in a wheel program. I was watching TV. Oh, I was in my office the other night at home, sort of editing some videos and doing some work, and I felt this dark energy just loom over me. And I thought, where is that coming from? Who sent that? And my guide team said, the TV, the TV, the TV. And I came out here, and my husband was watching some horrible werewolf show. And I was like, Tony, what are you watching? And he's like, you know, he loves the sci-fi and the fantasy and all that stuff. And I'm like, could you just put some like violet flame around the telly if you're going to watch this crap? Because it actually does come through into the house. And he just thinks I'm nuts. He's like, baby, it's not real. And I'm like, how long have you known me for now? It's totally real. But, you know,
yeah.
everything, you know, everything is energy.
This is another thing that I think is so dismissed is negative energy and uh, how it comes in and manifests in reality. And
Yeah.
one of the things I find interesting is, and one of the reasons why I'm a vegan and I eat plant-based is because when you're eating these slaughtered animals, and these are things that Socrates and Pythagoras talked about, when you're eating these animals that were killed, you're eating that negative energy, you're absorbing that into your being, your soul, whatever you want to call it. So that's, and even the dark energy and the negative energy you were saying about TV shows and music, yeah. Tesla even talked about this stuff. Tesla said, if you want to understand the universe, think in terms of energy, vibration, and frequency.
Absolutely.
And
Yeah.
Tesla was an absolutely brilliant, brilliant mind. I mean, yeah,
I've been channeling him recently. I've actually been learning a lot about vortex mathematics and the 3, 6, and 9 it's so fascinating. Well, I have a healing system called Precious Wisdom, and it's all based around, there were symbols. It was pure channeled in 2012 when I went through another big awakening. And it's this beautiful golden healing system that brings you into alignment with your higher self and empowers you to awaken your own gifts. It's about, you know, unconditional love, who you are. And I'm kind of like the guinea pig with this stuff, right?
Yeah.
I failed maths at school. I
Yeah,
never got it. I didn't get any of it. If they taught it like Tesla, and they taught sacred geometry, and they taught it in terms of consciousness and the laws of the universe, I would have been glued to my seat. I would have been riveted. But I've learnt so much. Like I realized that my logo and the first symbol in my healing system, which is all based on sacred geometry, without me even knowing, is the vortex mathematics flow of energy. And I'm like, I saw that pattern the other day, and I was like, how could I have known this? I've like tapped into some kind of genius. It's just amazing. And this is where, you know, this is where we're all headed as a species. So I think it's fascinating. So
I hope you're right.
yeah, I hope so too. But listen, I could talk to you for hours more, but I am aware that you probably have a life that you want to get back to. I'm so pleased as Punch to meet you and to introduce you to my audience on the Alexandra Wenman show. And thank you so, so much for speaking to me today.
Thank you. It was awesome. I don't get to share these thoughts and talk to people on a similar wavelength very often, so it's quite refreshing. So it was indeed my pleasure.
Oh, amazing. Thank you. And listen, we'll get you on Awake Ones next, and you can have a chat on there too. That'd be brilliant. The girls would love to meet you.
What's Awake?
So Awake Ones is my other YouTube show, which is
okay.
yeah, it's like a panel show. So there's 3 women, but we just have conscious conversations, a bit like this, but less of an interview style, more of a let's pick a topic and let's just chat about it. So if
Cool.
you're up for it, I'll get you on there.
Definitely.
So we can continue the conversation. Amazing.
Absolutely.
Brilliant. Well, thank you so much, my darling. And just for my viewers, again, just to remind you that you can find Phi at the Path of Phi on Instagram, and do check him out because his music is brilliant. And you can learn all about his ethos and his body movement and everything else that Phi is into. As you can see, it's endless. We could talk for hours and days and years, but for now I'm going to shut up because I'm going on a tangent. And thank you so much for watching the Alexandra Wenman show.